Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Some historical figures are just incredibly complex, aren't they?
They really are.
They leave behind a legacy that's, well, celebrated by some, condemned by others, and endlessly debated.
Absolutely, a real mix.
Today, we're plunging into the fascinating story of one such figure, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni.
Ah, Mahmud, yes.
He was a ruler from 997 to 1030 CE who, from a relatively small principality in what's now Afghanistan, managed to forge this vast empire.
It's quite astonishing.
Stretching all the way from Iran to northwestern India. It's an almost unbelievable story of ambition, military genius, and, well, profound transformation.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that Mahmud is known for far more than just his military might. He was also a significant patron of the arts and sciences.
Right.
Which means his life presents this incredible tapestry of contradictions. Understanding him isn't really about picking a side, is it? It's about seeing the full, often clashing picture.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission in this deep dive is to explore the multifaceted life of Sultan Mahmud. We'll be digging into the historical sources to understand his undeniable impact, his motivations, what drove him, and why his story is still so intensely debated centuries later.
Exactly. We want to go beyond the headlines, if you will, and examine the factual accounts to understand not just what he did, but crucially, why it mattered.
And the different ways people see him.
Yes, the different lenses through which history views him. By the end, you'll hopefully have a truly well-informed perspective on a figure who continues to shape historical narratives even today.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the man who would build such an empire, we probably need to start at the beginning. His origins.
Makes sense. Where did he come from?
He was born in 971 CE in Ghazni, which, as I mentioned, is in modern-day Afghanistan.
Yeah.
His father, Subcontinent, was himself quite a figure.
Right, the founder of the dynasty.
Exactly. He was a former Turkic slave soldier who rose through the ranks and established the Ghaznavid dynasty.
And that phrase, Turkic slave soldier, it often needs a bit of context, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It wasn't the chattel slavery we might immediately think of. It was more like this unique military system.
A pathway to power, almost.
In a way, yes. Highly trained individuals, often from nomadic backgrounds, were acquired, educated, and could rise to positions of immense power. And, like Subcontinent, even start their own dynasties.
So Mahmud grew up right in the middle of this.
Absolutely. In an incredibly militaristic and Islamic environment. That training was crucial. He got extensive instruction in governance and warfare directly under his father's guidance, really preparing him.
And that preparation turned out to be vital because almost immediately after his father died in 997 CE, things got messy.
A succession struggle, very common.
Yeah, a dispute erupted with his brother Ismail. But Mahmud, well, he didn't back down. He defeated Ismail pretty decisively in 998 and took control of Ghazni.
Solidifying his power base early on.
Exactly. Which leads us to his reign proper, and perhaps what he's most famous for, or infamous, depending on your view.
His military expeditions, especially into the Indian subcontinent, relentless is the word.
Relentless really is the right word. We're talking about an astonishing 17 invasions into India between 1000 and 1027 CE.
17! Just think about that frequency.
It's incredible. Nearly one invasion a year for almost 3 decades.
Yeah.
What was the driving force behind that? Was it purely about expanding Islam, or were other things at play?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And historians still debate the weighting. His objectives seem to have been threefold and often intertwined.
Okay, what were they?
Well, there was the desire to expand the reach of Islam, certainly, that religious motivation, the Ghazi ideal, but also, crucially, to amass immense wealth.
From India's temples, primarily.
Especially from the rich temples, yes. And thirdly, to strategically weaken the regional Hindu and Buddhist rulers, to undermine their power base. These goals weren't mutually exclusive at all.
Right, they could all work together.
Definitely.
Now, of all those 17 campaigns, there's one that really stands out, the one that probably sparks the most intense debate, even today. That's the 1025 CE raid on the Somnath Temple in Gujarat.
Ah, Somnath, yes.
What made this particular expedition so significant? Why does it still resonate so strongly?
Somnath is such a powerful example of both Mahmud's strategy and, well, the contradictory nature of his legacy. He looted and destroyed the temple, yes.
Gaining huge wealth.
Immense wealth, and in his view, and the view of his chroniclers, significant religious prestige as a Ghazi, a warrior for Islam. But what makes it so impactful isn't just the treasure he seized.
What else then?
It's how this single event became this powerful, incredibly divisive symbol. For him and his supporters, it was validation, religious victory. For others, particularly in Indian historical memory, it's seen as this deep wound, an act of brutal desecration.
So it perfectly encapsulates that contradiction we talked about.
Exactly. It's remembered so differently depending on which historical narrative you're engaging with. That's key.
And it wasn't just India, though, that gets a lot of the focus. He also campaigned extensively in the West.
That's right. Across Khorasan, Transoxiana, the Iranian plateau, he took on rival powers like the Buyids and defeated them.
What was the significance there?
Well, beyond territorial gain, what's crucial is that his victories over Ismaili and Shia factions, these were, rival branches of Islam with different theological interpretations, were instrumental in consolidating Sunni orthodoxy in the region.
So strengthening his own branch of Islam.
Yes, actively pushing for a unified, stricter form of Sunni Islam, which was his own faith. Religious consolidation alongside military expansion.
So, okay, we've painted this picture of Mahmud the relentless conqueror, an incredible military force. But what happens after the battles? How did he manage to build something lasting from all that conquest?
That's where his genius, perhaps, as an administrator comes into focus. While the conquests often overshadow it, what's truly insightful is how Mahmud seemed to understand that conquest was only half the battle.
You need to govern, too.
Precisely.
Wow.
He wasn't just a warrior, he built an administrative machine designed to sustain that vast empire. That reveals a crucial insight into how lasting power is actually forged.
So it wasn't just about grabbing land, it was about building a state structure. How did he do that?
Well, he focused on centralizing authority. He strengthened the Sultanate's central power by appointing governors and military commanders he trusted, people loyal to him, to secure those vast territories. That's a huge undertaking, coordinating all that.
And the economics. All that wealth from India must have helped.
Immensely. And the economic policies were savvy. The massive revenues from the Indian raids weren't just hoarded, they were strategically reinvested.
Into what?
Public works, further military expansion keeping that machine going, and, very importantly, cultural patronage, which we'll get to. He also actively promoted trade and commerce, connecting Central Asia with the Islamic heartlands. It created a remarkably vibrant economy.
And the military itself, how was it organized?
It was formidable. A standing army, which wasn't always a given then, composed of diverse groups, Turkic, Persian, even Indian soldiers. He effectively used cavalry, elephants, archers.
A combined arms approach.
You could say that. A blend of nomadic warfare tactics, like fast-moving cavalry and archery, combined with Persian-style governance, which emphasized that centralized administration and a sophisticated court culture. It made his forces incredibly effective, both on and off the battlefield.
Okay, so empire established through force, cemented by administration. But Mahmud didn't stop there, did he? He turned his attention to another kind of legacy, culture.
Yes, transforming his capital, Ghazni, into a true beacon of culture and learning.
What did that look like?
Ghazni was absolutely revitalized under his rule. It became this grand capital adorned with mosques, magnificent palaces, lush gardens, extensive libraries, a real center.
And language played a role.
A big one. He formally adopted Persian as the court language, promoting its use across his entire empire. That had a lasting cultural impact far beyond his reign, embedding Persian literature and administration in new regions.
And he attracted some big names to his court.
Some of the greatest minds of his time, really. We're talking about figures like Ferdowsi, the epic poet who wrote the Shahnameh, though their relationship famously ended on a sour note.
Right, the payment dispute.
Exactly. Mahmud reportedly didn't fulfill his promised reward, which left Ferdowsi quite bitter. But still, the work was monumental. And then there was al-Biruni.
The polymath.
The brilliant polymath, yes. He studied Indian culture, science, religion, all under Mahmud's patronage. He traveled with Mahmud's armies, actually, and left behind these invaluable texts on the subcontinent. Incredible scholarship.
Wow. And architecture, too.
Yes, his architectural legacy is impressive. Structures like the minaret of Ghazni still stand, remnants of that era. His efforts in construction and urban development really laid a crucial foundation for later Islamic art and architecture, both in India and Central Asia.
It's just incredible to think of one ruler balancing such immense military ambition with this meticulous focus on trade and infrastructure, and then also turning to these grand cultural projects.
It speaks to the scope of his vision, certainly.
Now, let's touch on the religious aspect again. We mentioned the Ghazi ideal. How central was his religious identity?
On the religious front, Mahmud was definitely a staunch Sunni Muslim. He very much saw himself and presented himself as a Ghazi.
A warrior for Islam.
Correct.
And he didn't just passively identify that way, you said.
No, he actively promoted Orthodox Sunni Islam. And as we noted, he suppressed Shia and Ismaili sects within his domain. It was about reinforcing his religious commitment and his political consolidation. They went hand in hand.
So it reinforces the idea that his raids into India.
Precisely. It's important to reiterate that those raids often had clear religious undertones. Targeting temples was not just about wealth. They were seen as symbols of non-Islamic faiths. This was part of his self-perception, his narrative, as a champion of Sunni Islam.
Okay, so this powerful, complex figure, how did it end? Sultan Mahmud died in 1030 CE. What happened then?
He left behind this incredibly powerful, but maybe somewhat overstretched empire. His son, Musatai, succeeded him, but, well, he struggled.
Couldn't hold it together.
Not like his father could. He struggled to maintain that vast domain. The empire, unfortunately, declined significantly within about a century. The foundations maybe weren't as deep as the initial conquests were wide.
But despite the empire's eventual decline, Mahmud's legacy obviously endured, just in very different ways.
Sharply contrasting ways. In Islamic historiography, especially among Muslim chroniclers like Al-Utbi, who wrote close to his time, he's often celebrated.
As a hero.
As a hero, yes, for his jihadist campaigns. Glorified as a devout Muslim, a brilliant general, his actions are framed as religiously righteous and strategically brilliant.
But that's not the view everywhere.
Not at all. In stark contrast, he is largely viewed quite negatively in Indian historical narratives. There, he's remembered primarily for the temple desecrations, the cultural destruction, often depicted as a ruthless invader driven purely by greed and religious intolerance.
Two completely different Mahmuds, almost.
It really seems that way sometimes. And this raises that important question for modern historians. Were his campaigns primarily religiously motivated, or were they driven more by economic and political factors, the desire for wealth, land, power?
And the answer is likely.
The truth is likely a complex blend of both. Motivations are rarely singular. Some historians even view him as maybe an early example of this fusion of military conquest with cultural assimilation and transformation. His impact, regardless of motivation, truly paved the way for later Islamic expansion into India. He influenced empires like the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal Empire.
So when we sum it all up, Sultan Mahmud was clearly more than just a conqueror, wasn't he?
Much more.
He was a state builder, a significant patron of the arts, and a true shaper of history. His legacy is just undeniably marked by grandeur, complexity, and, as we've seen, profound contradiction.
That's spot on. So it seems his impact is truly multifaceted, celebrated in some narratives, profoundly contested in others. While he's remembered for cultural contributions and military brilliance in much of the Islamic world, his legacy in South Asia remains, deeply contested. It really reflects the enduring impact of his reign across different civilizations and centuries.
So what does this all mean for us listening today when we look at a figure like Sultan Mahmud, who is simultaneously a hero and a villain depending on whose history you read? What does that tell us?
It tells us a lot about history itself.
About the nature of historical interpretation, maybe,
Yeah.
and the lasting echoes of events across centuries and cultures? How do we reconcile such deeply different perspectives? And maybe, what does it reveal about how these historical narratives continue to influence perceptions and relationships even today?
Huge questions.
Definitely something to consider as you encounter history in all its complexity in your own daily life.